This is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culchion Ford. Bird Culchion Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of the Bearcast on Sic'Em 365 Radio, Sic'Em365.com. And no, we are not coming to you right from outside a fighter jet. We are not inside the theater watching Top Gun as we record this, but construction continues on the corner of MLK and Elm, right outside the door, literally like 2 feet out the door. They've got jackhammers going, and I'm not sure how it comes across over the radio, but my voice sounds like it's shaking during this, then you understand why, because it's pretty loud. But Craig Smoke with you as always, joined as always by Grayson Grundhafer. We got Garrett and Jack behind the scenes as well, and a lot going on right now in Baylor athletics, even though the semester continues to wind down. And Grayson, how are we doing this week? Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, it's going good. And honestly, it's better than when we were in the container getting rained on and, hearing all the rain come in. And then it's in the studio and we're trying to record while, it's flooding in there. And so I'm okay with it. It's a little loud. Hopefully everyone can hear us okay. But yeah, I think this is a intriguing week, and a week that actually has a lot of talking points, which as we go through the summer, sometimes we don't get to talk about a whole lot, but for some reason, oftentimes things just kind of pop up. And this week that definitely happened. Some decisions were made. And overall, it ended up being a very entertaining and interesting week for Baylor sports. And I would say that for most programs, I think they're better than they were a week ago.
Yeah, well, for one program, there's a big change afoot, as we learned over the weekend on Memorial Day Monday, which hopefully everybody had a good extra day if you had an extra day off. But we learned that Steve Rodriguez's time at Baylor has come to an end. Stepping down was going to be fired if that weren't the case. I think that's pretty obvious at this stage. They went 0-2 in the Big 12 tournament after eking out a spot in the 8th seed. And they needed to win a game, and they won a game, and it fell their way, and they got into the tournament, but then proceeded to go 0-2, losing to TCU and Oklahoma State. And that was all she wrote. That was the end of the Baylor baseball season, not with a bang, but with a whimper. And just the way things have kind of gone all year, we knew that something was going to have to break one way or the other for Baylor baseball moving forward. And, well, the break is that Steve Rodriguez, I guess, saw the writing on the wall as well and went ahead and, announced it, or I guess told Baylor that he would be stepping down. So I guess that saves everybody the trouble of the exit interviews and then trying to figure out what they wanted to do, how to get it turned around for next year. Instead of trying to turn it around, they're going to basically start anew with a new coach. There's already, names that are being thrown around by people. But again, it's been, just now about 24 hours since the news broke. So I don't think, the search is going to be wrapping up, in the next couple of days. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about candidates, and I'm sure there's some people we're not thinking of if it's a typical Mack Rhoades interview. But, it is what it is for baseball. About a 500 season just throughout. They just hung around 500, got into Big 12 play, lost some series they should have won. Oklahoma comes to mind as one that they should have, been able to take. But instead, whether it was pitching or it was injuries or what have you, it just wasn't working for Baylor baseball. And after several seasons now at the helm, Steve Rodriguez is off to his next great adventure, and Mack Rhoades has a baseball coach to hire.
Yeah, he's got a decision to make. And, if there's one thing I trust, it's Mack Rhoades getting a coaching search decision right. Like, I have the utmost confidence in what he's going to do. He's going to find a really good coach who's going to help bring this program back. But I do want to take a minute and kind of talk a little bit about Steve Rodriguez for a second, his career at Baylor, because he did have to come into a situation where the recruiting kind of barrel was not good for Baylor, and he had to turn things around. He did that in pretty quick fashion, and by the time 2017 rolled around, they were a competitive program. They made a regional. They had a really nice season, had a really competitive RPI inside the top 20 that year. And then in 2018, they were very good again. 2019 was going to be their best team, it seemed like, and just things unraveled. And during those 3 years is where, for me, they had 3 really good teams and could never get out of a regional. And that was really hard to watch. You know, they had opportunities, they had good enough teams to do it, but it just didn't happen in postseason play. And it felt like down the stretches of many of those seasons, things just did not shake their way. Injuries were a problem, and I understand all of that. Now, 2020 rolls around, and I really feel like that was going to be a pretty good team. They were 10-6, had just come off of the Shriners Hospital Classic, in which they beat Missouri, LSU, and Arkansas, 3 top 25 teams in a row that weekend. Came out, beat Cal Poly in a series, and were about to take on Grand Canyon, and the season got canceled. And I felt like from that moment on, they just could not replenish the talent. They could not get to the point where they were healthy enough to compete consistently. And then these past 2 years happened, and it's just really unfortunate. It felt like things were all kind of trending there for Baylor to really be a juggernaut and really be a team that could make it to a super regional every year. But things didn't shake that way. His postseason problems were well known and well documented, and now you're at a point where you miss postseason 2 years in a row, and it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, it is, and you know, I've been saying the phrase they had no juice. I've been saying that over and over again now for several weeks, and I think that was more apparent than ever there at the end. I mean, just a team with no gas left in the tank and just not a lot of fight left in them, and unfortunate to see the season end, you know, just kind of, oh, it's over, you know, like almost unnoticeable in a way for many out there. But now it's on to a coaching search. So I know the easy name to throw out there, and it's been thrown out there a million times already, is Mitch Thompson at MCC, you know, formerly on the Baylor staff. Kid goes to Baylor, a lot of success at the junior college level. I don't think it's quite as simple as that. His name's been thrown out there, and I haven't really taken a lot of time to dig too much into who else would be potentially a candidate, but we've got time for that. I don't expect this to be by next week we're talking about the brand new baseball coach, but anything on your end in terms of the coaching position and anybody that you have in mind?
I just don't think it's going to be an obvious name. I really don't. It has never been as simple as, oh, the first name leaked is the guy who it's going to be. And a lot of people have talked about Mitch Thompson, but again, I feel like, at least in my opinion, that's more of Baylor fans wanting him to come to Baylor, you know what I mean, and be back at Baylor and be a guy who kind of continues this trajectory of bringing in coaches like that. And honestly, I think it's really funny because Steve Rodriguez was not even close to being a name that was mentioned often for the Baylor job the first time around. And just Mack Rhoades' track record tells me that it's not going to be an obvious choice. It's going to be a guy that's kind of Mack thinking outside the box, going and finding the right culture fit, which Steve Rodriguez was. And I think he's going to be able to do that. And as far as names go, you know, I like Dan Hefner, the coach at Dallas Baptist. He's kind of the guy who they've been really good, really consistent. He would make a lot of sense. But again, I think he's probably far too obvious as well, much like Mitch Thompson. And so I think it's going to be someone that no one's talking about currently that Mack Rhoades goes out and hire. But one thing I can tell you is the way Mack Rhoades goes through coaching searches, I have a ton of faith that he's going to get this right because he's gotten it right every single time up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I was thinking of the coaches that he's hired and whatnot, and it's been pretty solid. And there's still, some holdovers from the previous era as well that were hired, and Steve Rodriguez was one of those, but now Mack Rhoades will have more of an imprint on this athletic department, hiring his first baseball coach. So he's hired a women's basketball coach, he's hired a track coach, he's hired a couple football coaches, so on and so forth. And now, men's tennis he hired, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but now it's time for a baseball coach. So we've certainly got used to searches around here, and we'll see how different this one is from, replacing a women's basketball coach or a football coach, I guess. But I felt like it was time. I don't know how you could have come back and ran it back last year, even if you'd have said like, oh, we've gone in the transfer portal and we've upped the pitching and we've changed the way that we do our throwing programs, or like there was just nothing that was going to, I think, flip the opinion or energize what is kind of a very flatline fan base at this moment. If you had brought Steve Rodriguez back, there's nothing I think you could have said that would have been like, you know what? Yeah, let's get into it. One more run. Let's go see. I think everybody was just, even Steve Rodriguez was just kind of like, yeah, this is the end here.
Yeah, and I also feel like if you brought him back for next year, it'd be constantly, every time he lost, fire him, why is he still here? And I just don't think that's a good environment, nor a conducive environment, especially during a baseball season that always has ebbs and flows. There's a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and you got to be able to mellow those out and have a fan base that's supportive of that. And I overall think he lost the fan base, and I think when you lose the fan base, it's really hard to get that back. And I think everyone that I talked to was pretty much ready to kind of move on, and it seems like Steve Rodriguez was as well.
Yeah, anything as far as just the things you're looking for in a new head coach?
Yeah, I think for me, a big thing, and I don't even know if this is controllable, but they need to figure out the strength and conditioning staff, because this team has been marred by injuries too many times. And I think that it's hard to blame a specific person, but what I can tell you is, Vic Valoria on the football side did a great job, his first year. And I do think that when you have a specific strength and conditioning program that really focuses on certain things, especially keeping pitchers healthy, I think there's a lot of set up for success. And I think that's one thing that the next coach has to bring with him, is an elite strength and conditioning staff to make sure that these guys stay healthy, because the baseball season is grinding, it's grueling. And for pitchers, when you lose one of your star pitchers, it's really hard to rebound from that, as we've seen with this Baylor program. So I want that. Also, just honestly would like a guy who's going to come in and really focus on making baseball fun again at Baylor. Making the environment fun, creating some juice, and really going out and being active on social media, being a face of this so-called franchise and this program. And I just think it's one of those must-haves with this new hire, is to bring excitement and also basically show up and say, hey, Baylor, hey, Mac Rhodes, this is why we need more facilities. This is why we need X, Y, and Z. And you do that by winning, but also being a guy that everyone in the fan base loves, the players love. And so I'm hoping they bring a guy with that kind of energy as well.
Yeah, I still remember driving back from like a radio remote and hearing Steve Rodriguez on what was Smokey and Paul's show back then, doing his very first interview after Ian McCaw had hired him. And it does kind of seem like a long time ago, but it's also kind of weird just now look up, snap your fingers, and, Steve Rodriguez is on his way out. That's just how life just passes you by. So that's who I've pretty much known as the head coach for a majority of the time that I've been around Waco, which is quite a while now. And I think initially there was a little bit of buzz, but you're right. Like, you look around at Oklahoma winning the Big 12 tournament, or even, Texas, even though it's not been quite the year that they thought because they've had injuries or whatever. Oklahoma State, TCU.
TCU with a first-year head coach.
Yeah,
after replacing a legend.
They're all having fun, and they're all playing in big games, and there's big crowds, and, there's excitement, and that hasn't been the case around here for a while. So I think you're dead on with whoever comes in needs to really create some more excitement, because Baylor fans have proven that they love baseball in the past, and they'll support baseball, but you got to give them a reason to, and I don't think that reason was there the last year or so. So, Steve Rodriguez out as Baylor baseball coach, and the search begins to find his replacement. So we will have all of that discussion and scuttlebutt. There's multiple threads where you can go and talk with other Baylor baseball fans about his departure and about the decision and about who might be the next guy. You can check that out over the premium boards over on Sic'Em365.com. And, of course, we'll be talking about it on all the different podcasts and radio shows as well, as it, as info drops or as news breaks or what have you. Elsewhere in basketball, a lot of news last week. Adam Flagler, let's start there. After testing the NBA draft waters and going through the process of just trying to see what pro scouts think of his game and where he kind of fits in at the next level, because of the rules that were passed years ago, you are able to do that and even hire an agent and not, have to worry about never being allowed back in college again. So Adam Flagler took advantage of that opportunity, like Matthew Meyer has done the last couple of years, and went and put his toes in the water and found out that, it's just not quite right just yet. And he announces last week that he is coming back to college basketball. And unlike Matthew Meyer, he's not entering the transfer portal. He's coming back to be a Baylor Bear once again and close out his career. This was a piece that I think most people expected back, but at the same time, you just never know when they're out there, and you never know what they're being told or what they might be thinking. So even though this was kind of assumed to be the move, you never know until it actually happens. And now Adam Flagler officially back in the fold, and the dust settling now for this Baylor men's basketball roster.
Yeah, and Baylor has their starting point guard for next year. He's going to play point guard. I know some people have concerns and doubts about what Adam Flagler is going to do, but make no mistake about it. This guy should be the preseason favorite to be all-conference, an all-conference guard, maybe even the player of the year in the conference. He's going to come in and be an elite point guard. I think he'll be the best point guard in the Big 12 next year. And I think you're going to see a more dynamic offensive lineup when you have him and LJ Cryer and Keontae George, and then off your bench, you got Dale Bonner and Langston Love at the wing. You also got Caleb Lohner and Jalen Bridges, and of course, Flo Thamba down low, but a whole lot of shooting and ability to spread the floor. And I think many people watch Adam Flagler last year and they said, man, he's not a point guard. You know, when James Akinjo's not on the court, they don't have a point guard. But I think late in the year, he sneakily got a lot better at the point guard position as he got healthier. And I really think he's going to be elite at that position. And the big things I tweeted about this were kind of just talking about the fact that they're going to have three guys who are going to shoot 40% from three with Flagler, Cryer, and Keontae. You got Jalen Bridges, who I do think can be a 38% to 40% three-point shooter as well. You got guys off the bench who can shoot, but they're going to create so much spacing, and that's really going to help Adam Flagler out in the pick-and-roll game. And I think you're going to see a guy that takes huge steps as far as ball handling and in the passing game as well. I think he's going to be terrific. I think LJ Cryer will be the backup point guard, even though he'll be starting. It'll be very similar to Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler, how they kind of took turns as the point guard when one wasn't on the court. So I see big things coming for Adam Flagler, and I wanted to point out these three numbers just because, again, people have this misconception that Adam Flagler can't play point guard, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So Tweety Carter, first 3 years at Baylor, he averaged 3 assists per game. His final year at Baylor, 5.9 assists. Davion Mitchell, 3.8 assists his first year, 5.5 his second year. Jared Butler, 2.9 assists his first 2 years to 4.8 his final year. Adam Flagler will be right around 4.5, 5 assists a game this year. Go ahead and bookmark that and just kind of check mark it because he is going to be much improved passing the ball and taking care of the ball. He's going to be great for Baylor next year.
Yeah, so big time return, to say the least, for Baylor basketball, and sets up the team nicely for next season. Again, not unexpected. There wasn't a lot of buzz with him in the draft necessarily, but he got his grades and he got his reviews, and now he knows what he needs to come back and work on. So he'll have that little extra chip, and also, hey, wanting to close it out strong with Baylor basketball. So exciting times for men's hoops. And on the flip side, Matthew Meyer, his decision coming down last week, and thankfully we don't have to watch him play in the Big 12. That was a little bit of a worry, just really an annoyance more than a worry of having to tune in and see him in like Texas Tech gear next year. Just I don't know, man. I mean, I understand like West Virginia's going to watch Jalen Bridges in green and gold and be like, man, that's weird. But I'm thankful we don't have to watch Matthew Meyer out in Lubbock playing with Mark Adams, or even in Lawrence, Kansas for that matter, or wherever else he could have potentially gone. Instead, if we see him, it'll be, pretty random because he's going up to the Big Ten. He's going to go play for Brad Underwood and the Illinois Fighting Illini, joining Dane Danger up there, former Baylor player as well. But there had been some smoke with Illinois on Twitter, and I'd seen some of that, but it really felt like and this is why, they call Twitter a funhouse mirror sometimes, because it's not always indicative of reality, or maybe reality gets a little bit bent. Just because you see a lot of something doesn't mean that's really what everybody's thinking or what everybody's leaning towards. There's fan bases that have big voices. North Carolina is certainly one of those, and I'm sure he considered North Carolina pretty heavily, but you would have thought it was a slam dunk that he was heading to Chapel Hill if you just went off of like Tar Heel Twitter. Illinois, though, had some quiet confidence about them, and in the end, he does pick Illinois, which was kind of a surprise because I just bought into the UNC hype. But he's heading to the Big Ten. Your thoughts on Matthew Meyer's decision?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did think North Carolina, but I had heard a lot of smoke in maybe the 3 or 4 days prior to his decision that Illinois was definitely in it. I actually tweeted at a North Carolina fan that I thought he was going to go to Illinois prior to his decision. So there was definitely some smoke there between those two schools. I do feel like those were his top two. I don't think that Tech was truly a contender there, but it's good for Baylor, right? And good for Baylor fans that we don't have to sit there and watch Matthew Meyer play at Texas Tech, whereas Tech fans have to watch Kevin McCullough play at Kansas, which that's just such a bummer and such a tough thing, especially when a guy's played at your school for 4 years. I mean, he's so ingrained into the Baylor culture. So I think Illinois is going to be a great spot for him. They're going to allow him to play with a lot of freedom and I think really get possibly the best out of Matthew Meyer. But we'll see. It's going to be up to him to develop and become a better player than he was this past season. So good for both sides. I'm happy for Matt, and I'm very happy for Baylor because getting Adam Flagler back makes this team a legit national title contender once again.
Yes, it does. So Matthew Meyer off to Illinois, Adam Flagler back in Waco, and we also saw where just today Gonzaga and Baylor announcing a neutral site game for next season. They'll play on Friday, December the 2nd. Baylor and Gonzaga matching up once again, and so that ought to be a little bit of fun. It'll be a neutral site location for the game. So before you go like, oh, are they playing in Waco? Are they playing, no, it's going to be neutral site between these two, and I just had the information in front of me, and now I can't find it anywhere as far as the neutral site. Like in South Dakota or something random?
Yeah, it's Sanford Pentagon.
Sanford Pentagon.
South Dakota. So, yeah, that's where they're going to be playing. I was just talking to Jack about this and Garrett. That felt like that was a weird location for this game, but it'll be fun nonetheless, right? I mean, these two teams finally get to play each other in the regular season. They were supposed to play in 2021 in the regular season. That did not happen. So I'm excited for this. That's going to be a true test. December 3rd or December 2nd. So, yeah, it'll be very exciting. It's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, so fun matchup to look forward to. A random place to go. If you're ever trying to check South Dakota off your bucket list, I guess it's a prime opportunity. Give you a reason to go out there to the Sanford Pentagon. But Gonzaga and Baylor, that now announced as well. So a lot going on with hoops, even though it's prime off season right now, and the transfer portal starting to kind of come to a slow drip. But now Matthew Meyer's decision's out of the way. You got Flagler's decision. What else is out there for them now at this point?
That's it.
Yeah, I guess that's about it.
Yeah, their roster's full now, and this is the squad they're going to be rolling with into the season, and it's a dang good one. This team they're going to be very, very good. Obviously, not having Everyday John for looks like a large part of the season kind of hurts, but at least they get Flo Thamba back, so they have some veteran experience down low. The additions of Lohner and Bridges as well will give them some depth in the front court.
All right, so there's basketball. Everything now settled in for them and their roster for next season. You've got Steve Rodriguez out in baseball, so nothing really set for them next season. And who knows with the roster and the transfer portal these days, like what that looks like. And that's all to be figured out here over the next few weeks. Elsewhere, track and field continuing on, sent a lot of people to the national championships in Eugene here in a couple of weeks. But then football-wise, it's prime off season for football. I know there's recruiting constantly going on, but we did get to find out some information on football last week with the release of some of their game announcements, some of their TV times and TV networks for the first 3 weeks of the season, and then some of their Big 12 contests as well. And there were some things of interest there. First of all, they're going to be opening up at 6 o'clock against Albany on and Baylor football needs to update their page actually, but they need to they will open up, I should say, against Albany Saturday, September the 3rd, 6 o'clock. That will be an ESPN Plus broadcast. We remember what happened when they opened up with ESPN Plus last year. Wasn't the greatest thing in the world. And thankfully, this game will be in Waco, so they'll have the Baylor Vision crew or whatever that will be handling that, and they've got a lot of experience with that. So Albany, 6 o'clock, at least that'll cool it off somewhat. It'll still be hot as, all get out, but better than playing, I guess, at, noon or something like that against Albany. And that should make for a fairly breezy, relaxing, and enjoyable Saturday night to open the season for Baylor fans.
Yeah, I love the night game for that first game. I think that's really a better atmosphere to start the season. So, yeah, they'll take on Albany. That should be an easy win at 6 p.m. ESPN Plus, can be hit or miss, but at least this one's at home and it's not, Texas State filming it. So, yeah, I think it'll be fun.
Following week at BYU be 9:15 Central Time. That's an ESPN broadcast, so
late night.
Getting a late Saturday night, almost Pac-12 after dark-ish, but that's on main ESPN and on the road in Provo. So that'll be an interesting preview of the future Big 12. Saturday, September 17th, like I said, the first 3 weeks announced. FS1, 11 a.m. Central, it'll be Texas State in Waco. Then they also announced October the 13th, the Thursday night game at West Virginia. So Thursday night in Morgantown, that'll be an FS1 6 o'clock kickoff. And then Texas, that game announced as Black Friday. No kickoff time released just yet, but that will be either an ESPN or an ABC broadcast. So you would think that if things go well for the Bears and the Longhorns, that'll shape up to be a really big game on Black Friday, which is why we haven't probably seen a time released, and they're still figuring things out. But either ESPN or ABC, so that one on a platter to be a pretty big broadcast when the time does come and both teams can take care of their business. So there you go, 5 games announced. Black Friday now against Texas. Thursday night, national broadcast against West Virginia. And then, ESPN Plus to open the year. And then ESPN Saturday, late night, BYU. And FS1 Saturday, Texas State. So exciting to get some of the scheduling out there.
Yeah, the 9:15 game is really intriguing. I can't remember the last time Baylor played a game that late. I'm trying to remember maybe the Cactus Bowl.
They've barely gone out to the West Coast.
Right.
I mean, so they haven't done it often.
Yeah, so a late night game there. I think that'll be cool, though. On ESPN, second week of the year. I mean, that sets up to be a really good game. Hopefully, BYU is able to be ranked by then. I kind of have a feeling they will be, and that's going to be a marquee game, and hopefully Baylor isn't sluggish with that late night time. 11 a.m. against Texas State is going to be hot. Going to be really, really hot for that game. But again, 11 a.m., that kind of makes sense for a game against Texas State. And then, of course, we knew the West Virginia game was going to be a night game. So no surprise there on a Thursday night. And that's going to be a really tricky one in Morgantown for a Thursday night. Anything can happen when you go on the road to West Virginia, especially on a Thursday night. Things can get a little weird, as it did a few years ago here in 2019 for a Thursday night game against West Virginia.
Yep, so exciting to see that all get released. We still got about 6 weeks till Big 12 Media Days, and so there will be a slow trickle of news between now and then, and then that's when we'll really start to kind of turn the corner to counting down the season. But in the meantime, plenty of recruiting and, just everything, football, basketball, baseball coaching search, all that over on Sic'Em365.com right now and continuing on over the next till there is no more Sic'Em365.com. It's what we do on a daily basis. So anything, Grayson, before we go into the mailbag here?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. Exciting week.
A lot going on. Flagler back, Rod out. Football game times. Yeah, there's quite a bit going on, and it's enjoyable. But let's start off with Alpha Needle here with the Bearcast questions, who asks which Big 12 football coaches are on the hot seat and in danger of losing their job if they have a bad 2022 season.
Yeah, I think the first one's Neil Brown. He can't have another bad year at West Virginia. I don't even know what a bad year entails. I think if he misses a bowl, he probably can't survive that. So, I mean, especially if expectations, like we got asked, a couple weeks ago about them being a 10-win team. So clearly the fan base has unreasonable expectations. So I think he probably needs to win 7 games, at least make a bowl to keep his job. Steve Sarkisian has to make a bowl. Has to. I think he's getting fired if he's not making a bowl. But again, I think they will. And then the other one that's interesting to me, and he can kind of go either way, as we're going to talk about in the next question, but I don't think Chris Kleiman cannot make a bowl. I think this team's too good to not make a bowl appearance, and I think they will, but I think he would be on the hot seat and maybe lose his job if they went 5-7 or 4-8.
For me, I think the only one that's realistic is Neil Brown. I think that one's become pretty clear over the last couple of years of they're just sort of in no man's land, sort of the middle ground. They've had some highs, but they've also had a bunch of lows. They had the mass exodus in the transfer portal, and then they managed to stop the bleeding by hiring Graham Harrell, but really by getting JT Daniels out of the portal. And basically they're pinning all of their hopes on JT Daniels, making them like some 10-win team or whatever. And I know some of it's just West Virginia fans joking around. Some of it's not. They're on that moonshine a little early, I guess, because he's good. He's not, good enough to turn them into like the Big 12 champs, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Neil Brown's got to show a little something this year, and it's more than just making a bowl game. You got to like actually go out and do something, because hanging your hat on just bowl games these days, that can be a bit misleading. So. I think Neil Brown's got something to prove. He doesn't have to go win like 9 games, but I think he's got to win like 7 or 8 and, not eke out a postseason invitation. And then the other two you mentioned, I think just with Kansas State, though, on Chris Klieman, I get that they're just kind of there, but what are your options? Like, there comes a point when you got to be realistic about who you are. And so if you're Kansas State, you could want more at this point from Chris Klieman, although I think, injuries, obviously Skylar Thompson, that probably derailed a couple of wins off their schedule the last couple of years. And if you look at it that way, well, they're all of a sudden like, hey, they're actually kind of okay. So I think their records have been a little bit misleading because of that quarterback problem in particular. But now you got Martinez back there, which that'll be an adventure if he's anything like his Nebraska self. So, I could see where you're coming from, but I just think, like, what's your other option, K-State? What else are you going to go get that's going to be any better than this guy? I think they're at a point where they just got to be patient for a little while and just grind away and just slowly but surely get better. So that's just my take on that. Who was the other one you said?
Oh, the other one was Steve Sarkisian if they don't make a bowl.
Yeah, I can't imagine them not making a bowl game again.
But if they don't,
yeah,
would you agree?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but I think 2 years would be a pretty quick trigger as well. And at some point, if you're Texas, like, you got to be realistic too. If you went and made a big move to go get Steve freaking Sarkisian from Alabama when he was at the highest of highs, as far as when you hired him. And then you dump him after 2 years because he's not showing up progress. Like, what are you really planning on doing with your program? So I could see that because it's Texas, but I also think that would be kind of a quick trigger. But it's interesting. I think the main one, though, we can all agree is Neil Brown. He's the one that's facing the most pressure this year. I'll also ask, conversely, which Big 12 coaches are most at risk to leave their teams to the NFL or a better program after a successful 2022 season.
Yeah, if Lance Leipold goes and wins 4 or 5 games, I think someone might hire him. So he's one. Mike Gundy definitely has to be one. He is every year. But if he has another year like last year, it's going to be hard for a big program to not take a shot on him, in my mind, even though it does seem like he's kind of been...
They haven't for 20 years, though.
Yeah, but I do think he's at risk. I know Baylor fans won't like to hear this, but Dave Aranda, if he makes a college football playoff, I think he's at risk. And then Chris Klieman, if he has a great year, I think he could move on from Kansas State, kind of like you said. K-State doesn't have a lot of options, but Klieman might if he has a really good year and finishes, top 3 in the conference.
Yeah, I think that's all possible. Yeah, I don't see any, I think Aranda obviously will be mentioned, but I don't know the coaching carousel will be as wacky as it was last year. That was an unprecedented year with like 10 jobs opening up that, otherwise would probably have been spread out over 2 or 3 seasons. We got like 5 seasons worth of coaching, high profile changes. So yeah, I think those names make sense, but a little too early to know just who all is going to be open at this point. And without that, you don't know, like, oh, well, that's a Michigan guy right there, or that's a. But yeah, I think those names you mentioned are all certainly candidates to get poached away, or to at least have people come at them. Bear Coug, first, if you could take one player from another team's 2022 Big 12 2022 football team roster, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson at Texas. I know Baylor's got Squirrel, but Bijan's just a different animal. That's on the offensive side. Defensively, probably Travius Hodges Tomlinson, just to give them an elite cornerback opposite Al Walcott.
Yeah, Bijan would be great. That'd be really nice. Defensively, I don't know. I'd have to kind of scour around the league. They could definitely use a defensive back. They don't really need D-line all that much. Linebacker, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know who's on half the teams at this point right now because of the transfer portal. Like, I need a refresher. I need like a set of notes next to me, like who's on Oklahoma's team now, because there's been so much back and forth. But yeah, I mean, Trey's a good player. He's a little bit undersized, but he's been able to make that work for himself on this level. I'm interested to see without, a Gary Patterson defense kind of what he looks like. But yeah, he'd be a good candidate. Outside of that, I'm just trying to think if anybody just immediately jumps to mind, and nobody really does.
I think Quentin Johnston, maybe on the offense side, he's many people probably athletically would put him as the best receiver in the league. Him, Marvin Mims, but I think Marvin's more of a scheme thing than Quentin.
Xavier Worthy would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be, two of Texas's guys. Those would probably be good picks. But yeah, don't worry too much about the defensive side, except for maybe in the secondary. You'd like to add a star.
At safety, I would love to, but the league is just not very deep with safeties, honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, like Bijan, Xavier Worthy, somebody explosive offensively would probably be the best bet. Thank you for the question. Also, second, what do you think about TCU not being selected to host a baseball regional this year while Texas and OSU do, but finished 5th and 4th in the Big 12 respectfully? I get that RPI rating is used, but winning your conference outright versus finishing 5th should carry some weight.
No, it should not when the disparity is this great. TCU was 37th in RPI. That is middle of the road, whereas Texas was 15th and Oklahoma State was 10th. I don't even think TCU has a case. I know they won the conference, but they won it by 1 game over Oklahoma State and 2 games over Texas, and their body of work is just not even comparable in the non-conference. So yeah, I don't view them as getting slighted at all for regional hosting. I think Oklahoma State definitely deserves it, and I can understand why Texas deserved it in the long run, finishing top 15, like I said, in RPI.
AF Blue 82, given where we are, thank you, Bear Coug, with the 2023 class, do you expect more emphasis on 2024 with the upcoming camps, or do you think we'll see a fair number of new 2023 offers?
Yeah, I mean, they're in a good spot in 2023, but I do think you'll see some offers go out. I think that Baylor's going to try to focus on finding some hidden gems, getting some guys on campus who will, test and put true testing numbers on display, while also getting to meet the staff, because that's a big thing for this Baylor staff, is getting to know the players that they're offering. So I think there could be quite a few offers in 2023 go out. But like it always is, the class, coming up, the next class is usually the one that gets hit by the most offers. So yeah, you'll probably see more in 2024, but I do think you'll see an emphasis still in 2023.
Scotty B, now with Adam Flagler coming back, would y'all say Baylor men's basketball is the favorite for the Big 12 over Kansas next year?
No doubt. I think they are definitely the favorite. I do think Kansas will probably be the second team, but I think you could probably convince me that they're maybe third. But either way, I think Baylor's the favorite to win it all, and I think they're probably going to be the only team in the preseason top 10.
Who would you say was second then if they're third?
Texas. I think that, but it's just like in football, they have a lot of talent. They got a high ceiling. They got, Tyrese Hunter is there now, the talented kid from Iowa State. So I think he's going to make them a lot better. It'd be hard to pick against Kansas. I understand that, but there's some firepower there. Tech will probably be competitive as well because they got a good culture.
Yeah, and they've also hit the transfer portal pretty hard as well. So I know they've lost some, but they've gained some as well. So, I don't think they're going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So those seem like pretty safe bets.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them will be top 10 outside. I think Baylor's going to be top 5 preseason, but I don't think anyone else will be in the top 10 unless they do the whole, Kansas is for sure going to win 30 games, which I understand they do every year. So maybe they'll get that bump.
Tyler Bear, what in your mind would be a successful football season? Last year, most of us thought just getting back to a bowl, 6-6 would be considered a success, and 8 wins or better would be amazing. Considering just the 2 wins the prior year, no question the bar is much higher this year to start the season, but with road games at BYU, Texas, OU, Iowa State, Tech, and West Virginia, it is a monumental task for certain to replicate last year's 12-2 record.
Yeah, I think 8-4 is a successful year. I think looking at the schedule, it's tough. Baylor's got a really good team. They need to take advantage of that, but anything less than 8-4 would be a little bit of a disappointment, but 8-4, that's a good number. That's a good year. You get a chance to go 9-4. You get an opportunity to have a really nice second season to go in a row. 8-4 is successful in my mind.
That's what I would say. I mean, because of the schedule, if the schedule is a little more favorable, I think you could, push 9-win season. I don't think they can win 9-10 games again, but just seems because of what they're facing, and Thursday night game on the road and Friday night game on the road, and it's just late night Saturday night game on the road. It's not a beneficial schedule for them, but if they get through it, then there's not going to be anything denying, how good or how tough they are. That's for sure. But yeah, I'd say 8-4, like 7-5. That just sounds like a down year. I mean, it really does, and it wouldn't necessarily be because they're, again, playing a really tough schedule. But to go from 12-2 to 7-5, yeah, that would be kind of a tough pill to swallow.
They'd be like Iowa State, top 10 preseason, and then you have all these expectations, and you go 7-5. That was Iowa State's thing this year. So I think that would be disappointing.
Yeah, difference being that Baylor's actually accomplised something from one of those preseason rankings. What they did last year, Iowa State wishes they could come close to doing. But yeah, you're right. Let's see. We both say 8-4 on that one. Edmund Bear, what do you think of this article that lists Baylor as the 13th most desirable university in the U.S.? It's from Fox 7 Austin. TCU and Tech nowhere to be found. UT, A&M, and Houston are ranked ahead of us. Harvard and other Ivies are lower. What is this?
It's just, I think he just wants our thoughts on it being 13th, and then asks the IPA question after.
Yeah, I don't know what the IPA is. Okay. Why do some people hate IPAs and some love them? Edit history, added a question mark because I was an idiot the first time. So, Edmund, I don't know where we are with this thing, man. You're talking about IPAs 1 second, and so I'm having trouble following. But as far as that article that you reference and our thoughts on Baylor being 13th most desirable in the U.S., what do you think?
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I mean, I went to Baylor over a TCU. So, I mean, I totally get it. I really, Baylor's a great school. I think TCU is a better school than Houston, though, as far as desirable. I guess the desirable term is kind of an interesting term to use, but I understand, Baylor's a great school. People that go to Baylor love Baylor. So I totally understand it. UT and A&M, very good schools as well, good places to be. Everyone that goes there seems to love their school as well. I think that it's a good spot to be, and I think being in Texas as well is a great perk.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that, they kind of fall somewhere in the middle, I guess, so to speak. But, yeah, I mean, Baylor's got a beautiful campus, and, it really depends on who you ask. Everybody looks for everything different. So when I see these lists, it's who are we basing this off of? Are we basing this off of this person's opinion? Or are we basing it off of, different rankings? Are we basing it off? So it's in the eye of the beholder. But, yeah, I think that's respectable enough and not really too surprising of a ranking. So I'm not sure about the IPAs again, but do appreciate you, Edmund, for asking. And I don't know, Harvard and Ivy Leagues being lower, 'cause clearly this is not educational. This is beauty and things of that nature type of a list. But I'm thinking I was out of Tech for a while, or out in Lubbock for a while, and it's an okay campus. It's fine. It's pretty enough. It's just very far out there. It's very far out there, and then TCU, there's a little Quinta jokes all the time. But it's got some nice parts. Dickey's Arena is great. That is one of the better things that's going on in Fort Worth at the moment. Just eye of the beholder, but that's respectable enough, Edmund. AF Blue 82, so with Steve Rodriguez stepping down, how long do you think it will take to name a replacement? And in the world of transfer portal and NIL, is it possible for us to build a contender overnight with the right hire? Full transparency, I have no idea where we are in the recruiting calendar, nor do I know what our incoming class looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably going to take a year or two for them to be a true contender for a super regional or a national championship. I think there's some pieces, but they definitely need to add some talent to this roster. So I don't think it'll be overnight, even if they get the right hire. But I do think they can make progress next year, make a regional next season and possibly compete in future seasons. So we'll see who they end up hiring. I'm excited for it. In baseball, you can turn things around with just getting a few good players here or there, getting the right fits for your team. So if this new coach can do that and bring a really good attitude to the locker room, I think there's a chance that they could get back to where they were in 2019 sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get this thing off the ground, but it doesn't have to take, a full break down, rebuild, build it up, like lengthy process. I mean, I think you get the right guy in because of the transfer portal. You can find some players pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know what the selections are, though. It's not like the football transfer portal or basketball. I don't know I don't know what first baseman's like the best in the transfer portal right now or any of that jazz. So I don't know, what all talent's out there. But if it's anything like the other sports, you think somebody with a good idea and good head on their shoulders and a good plan, that's the thing, is like who has a great plan for how to get the program kind of out of the basement, so to speak. And who can I go and identify and pick guys pretty quickly to load up however they need to. Like, who's on the roster next season right now? Like, he just stepped down, got fired, whatever, 24 hours ago. So I don't know what the roster looks like. I don't know what the recruiting calendar looks like. Those are all things that I'll need to learn a bit. But I don't see any reason why the right person can't come in and improve things pretty much right away. Now, as far as winning titles, that's going to take a little bit more time. That fair?
Yeah, that's fair, for sure.
All right, Tex Bam 81. Longtime listener, first time posting. If all other personnel and schemes remain the same going into 2022 football, coaches, players, etc., but you have Seth Russell, RG3, and Bryce Petty on your roster, who is QB 1, 2, and 3?
RG3 is definitely QB1. That's not even a conversation for me. I would probably say that in this scheme, I think it'd probably be Seth Russell then Bryce Petty, even though that's a tough one, honestly, for me, but I think Seth's legs give him an advantage in this scheme. So, yeah, I'll go RG3, Seth, then Bryce.
I'll take RG3, I'll take Bryce, and then I'll go Seth. Seth does, have the better legs, but are we going to leave him running a whole lot given the history there? Yeah, he could run, but I don't know. I feel like they wouldn't have to run the quarterback nearly as much if they had a guy who could slice and dice you with his arm, you know, and I think Petty could sit back there and do pretty well throwing the pigskin around.
Yeah, my only issue with him is pocket presence, the ability to avoid sacks in the pocket, which seems like something they really need in this offense, or it seems like the guys they've picked have had that quality at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tomato. I don't think you could go wrong, but RG3 is definitely number one. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. If whoever you want to go with, Bryce or Seth after that, like, I don't think anybody's going to argue. To each their own, but I'll go Petty and then Russell. Although, yeah, Russell's legs do make him pretty intriguing. That's three great quarterbacks. That's for sure. And Tex, thanks for the first time question, and do appreciate you. And hopefully we hear from you again. Doc Crowd, do we still see a jump in football recruiting this coming year if we only perform decently rather than fighting for a Big 12 championship?
I think so. I think there's a culture that's built here. I think, again, 8-4, you're doing just fine. You win 9 games, you're feeling really good if you can win the bowl game. And, they'll still be able to use it. Again, it's more of a culture that, we're going to be here. We're going to be winning at a high level every single year. And, maybe you can't win 12 games every single year, but I think, 8-9 win season will definitely be just fine for them to have that nice little recruiting bump and be, inside right around that top 25 point, which is where they need to be.
Edmund Bear, will Texas Tech under Joey McGuire's leadership win 12 games this year? Will they disappoint with only 11 wins?
Yeah, they're not getting close to either of those numbers. So I guess they're disappointing. If they make a bowl, I would be, not shocked. I
mean, they made a bowl last year.
Yeah, I think they can make a bowl, but I'm not sure they're going to do much better than that.
I mean, I'm definitely banking on them making a bowl game. They better damn well make a bowl game. This ain't a teardown that he's taking over out there. I mean, they've got basically a majority of their roster back plus transfer portal. So I don't see a teardown to where you're like, well, if we make a bowl game, that would be great. I think that would have to be like automatic. Yeah, you make a bowl game. If you made a bowl game last year, there's no reason you shouldn't make a bowl game this year in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, they do return a lot, but I still think it's hard to win in this conference as a first-year head coach. And, I mean, I don't think it's going to be easy
okay,
for
on
them
my
to
point,
get 6 games.
I don't think it's easy, but I think, 6 wins isn't the hardest thing in the world to do. I don't think – I guess I'm just coming from – I don't see a bowl game as, this unattainable benchmark that's, really hard to accomplish, and maybe I'm just downplaying it too much, but – you got to win 6 games. I think they can find 6. I mean, I'm saying it because I have confidence in Joey McGuire. If they don't win 6 games next year, then that to me, that would be, with all this offseason of hype, that would be disappointing to me as a Tech fan. But Yeah, I can see where that's a little, I guess, questionable for a first-year guy.
I mean, they got to play Houston and at NC State in the non-con. So there's a great chance they're 1-2 in the non-conference. And then you got to go into conference play. And are they going to win 6 games and get to set? They're not winning 6 games. I don't think they're going 6-3 in conference to get to 7 wins. So if they go 4-5 in conference and say they go 1-2 in the non-con, they're 5. I think it might be kind of difficult. I really do with not having 2 cupcakes. I don't know. I think it might be a little tougher than many may think. I think they'll probably go 6-6, but 5-7 would not be shocking me at all.
Well, I don't know about shocking or not, but I'd be surprised if they did not make a bowl game and win 6 games. I mean, they should be they'll get at least 1 game in the first 3, if not a couple. And then after that, if you can find 4, Kansas, okay, there's 3 that you need. If you can find 3 somewhere, then you can get there. But yeah, I don't think it's a barometer necessarily, but I would be surprised. I think you should be absolutely thinking that you're making a bowl game if last year's team made a bowl game. RG4, which of the young safeties do you see developing into the turnover creator for the defense? Can they step in and make a real impact this season?
Yeah, I mean, I continue to talk about Devin Lemire as a guy who I think can create turnovers in the secondary. And, him and Devin Neal are going to have to do that. But I just see some upside with Lemire as an opportunistic defender who can make some plays back there. It won't be to the level of JT Woods in my eyes, especially not this early in his career. But he's a guy who can force fumbles, is always in the right place, it seems like, to get interceptions. He did that a lot in high school. And I saw it on his film in high school. I see him as a guy that can create those turnovers that Dave Aranda wants. And so he's a guy that's definitely on my radar to be that creator in the secondary.
Yeah, he's a guy that's received a lot of hype so far, so I'm banking on him being one of the guys that we're talking about quite a bit. But it is a question mark back there, corners and safeties. I mean, Al Walcott, you kind of feel good about, but he's got to continue improving. And then after that, it's just a lot of young, unproven, but maybe have flash type of guys. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Devin Neal certainly seems like a good candidate. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level in the cornerback room for the 22-23 season? Who are the starters week 1?
So that's not next year, right? Is that a year?
No, next year's the 22-23 season.
22-23. Oh, okay.
We're in 22 right now.
Gotcha. Right. 2022-2023. So yeah, I'll go, Al Walcott and probably Mark Milton.
Yeah.
1. I mean, it's hard to figure that those won't be the starters week 1. As far as confidence level, I'm probably at a 6, maybe a 5, probably a 5. I like the young guys, but it's hard because Mark's played a lot of football, so he's probably going to start. Al had great moments, especially at the end of the year, but I don't know that I'm sold entirely on what they have out there as far as being all conference level, but I think they can be solid. And solid to me is right around a 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go Walcott, Milton on the starters. There's not even really a great candidate to be the second starter in my mind after Walcott because it's all just unproven guys at this point or young guys. So those are kind of by default. And that decision was made when they both decided to return. I'm not sure how much of a choice they both really had, but they both made announcements that they were returning. So, yeah, I expect those to be the guys, and then just a lot of unproven behind that. But I'd say I'll give him a 6 on confidence level. I feel pretty good about the way Walcott ended last year. And if he can, build off that, then I think he's got a chance to be a guy that we talk a lot about. Mark Milton's not going to be a headliner, but he's been steady. He's been very steady. He'll probably be the guy that gets picked on more often than not next year, kind of like Raleigh Tejada was at times. But I think, he's played a lot of football. I have more questions about beyond that. I know there's talent, but I just don't know that we've seen very much of it just yet. So starters-wise, I'll go 6 for confidence level.
Yeah, and I would just say don't be surprised if one of the young guys emerges as a starter by the end of the year.
I'd hope so.
Like a Tevin Williams or a Reggie Bush, maybe even an A.J. McCarty. I just think there could be someone that steps up and steps into that role and potentially takes over a starting role from Mark Milton. Even though Mark will play, I think that they rotate enough that a young guy could come in and emerge.
Well, Walcott took a starting job by the end of the year.
Yep.
From vets, so that wouldn't be anything brand new, and you would kind of hope to even see that because Walcott and Milton will both be gone after next year, and then you're starting from anew with the cornerbacks group. So big change over in the defensive backs. Got at least the veterans for these last few years and still have a little bit of that. But now, you really are getting to a whole new era of the defensive backs. We'll see that at safety primarily this year and in corner as well. But, that's going to be kind of the last. Once Milton moves on, that's going to be like the last run of the defensive back group that played for like 17 years in Waco. Barnes and Tejada and Woods and Morgan and all those guys. So should be interesting. But y'all go 6 on the corners. That is still a bit of a question mark. And that will be the last question. Thank you to RG4 for asking that about the safeties, creating turnovers, and then also about the confidence in the cornerback room. Some great questions this week, covering a lot of ground, and we do appreciate it. Grayson, anything before we go here?
No, I don't think so. I think this was another fun week to talk about some of these sports and great questions. It was a lot of fun with these questions. We had a good list. So if you haven't posted a question before, please do. We love responding to these. And if you already do, just keep on doing what you're doing.
Yep, definitely appreciate everybody that listens. Hopefully we keep you entertained for the hour or so that we're with you, and informed as well, covering all the different news and notes. And certainly there was a lot of that this week. Great news on Adam Flagler. Exciting news that there's just something new on the horizon for baseball. Best wishes to Steve Rodriguez. He was here for several years, and I know a lot of people who got to know him that really enjoyed him. And I, from the outside looking in, thought he was a nice enough guy, and, wish him luck with wherever he goes next. But hopefully Mac Rhodes can find the right guy to bring some excitement to Baylor baseball once again. So that process has begun. And until next time, we'll fill you in when we next talk to you. And on the boards, there will be a lot of discussion about the baseball search and everything that comes with that. So stay tuned to Sic'Em365.com and Sic'Em365 Radio. Thanks to Garrett and Jack behind the scenes. For Grayson Grunhafer, I'm Craig Smoke, and this has been the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.